all you meddling kids, it's your girl Pammy Chanel back with another video. Now I keep hearing about how in the 1940s, 50s, and a little bit in the 60s, life was so wonderful, especially if you had a nuclear family. Now I'm going to give you the definition of a nuclear family in terms of 40s and 50s. And it consists of a family with a mother, a father, and their children. Of course, in our present time, what a family looks like is evolving, but there are some people who are really trying to make the tradition of father being the breadwinner, mom staying home with the kids, and having this ideal leave it to beaver lifestyle return, which is not a bad thing. I'm not going to say it's a bad thing. There's nothing wrong with being a stay at home mom. Did it for a little while. Nothing wrong with that. As long as the intentions of the family is front and center, and what is in the best interest of the family is front and center. But what if I told you that the ideal 50s family is an illusion, a form of propaganda, and in actuality, every family's life was not so 50s perfect. Some of the same issues we face today were happening back then, and it took some courageous women to bring about change from the ashes, no pun intended, of their abuse. So today I want to talk about my hero, one of my heroes, Mrs. Francine Hughes. She was the subject of the book The Burning Bed and also the movie starring Farrah Fawcett called The Burning Bed. And I want to give you a trigger warning here. We will be discussing domestic violence. Francine was born in Stockbridge, Michigan in 1947 to an abusive alcoholic father who was a farm worker and a mother who stuck with him. I can only imagine what her home life was growing up as a child. By the time she was 16, she dropped out of high school to marry James Mickey Hughes, and by 1971, she divorced him after years of abuse along with financial struggle due to him spending the majority of their limited funds on alcohol. And this is what I mean when I say family's good intentions first. Because if you marry someone who turns out to be a not so nice person or a good provider, that stay at home parent dream becomes a stressful nightmare. I wanted to talk about the abuse during their marriage. According to Francine, the abuse began as soon as they got married. He became very jealous, very possessive. She said in an interview, "I bought some new clothes and he ripped them off me. I don't know whether I looked too pretty or what, but he didn't want me to look that way." The cycle of abuse continued with him beating the crap out of her and then feeling remorseful afterwards. And we've seen this cycle go on. I mean, someone yells and screams at you and gets irate. Let's talk about emotional abuse. And then they come back and like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to talk to you that way." But it continues to happen and there's no change. So that's pretty much what was going on in her marriage as far as physical and mental, emotional abuse. He would abuse her and then he would come back and he'd be apologetic and saying things would change. And of course, things never would change. As I mentioned before, Francine did get a divorce in 1971 from Mickey on the advice of a social worker in order for her to receive welfare benefits. But he continued to ignore the divorce decree. And one fateful event changed everything. Mickey was involved in a serious accident, and out of pity for him, she allowed him to move back in so that she could nurse and care for him. The abuse continued and gotten worse, with him destroying household items and even killing their daughter's kitten. He constantly threatened to unalive her, and she felt trapped. One bright thing that happened during this time, though, was she was able to obtain her GED because, I am all about getting that education no matter how many years it's been since you stopped. Always go back and get you some more education if you can. And she enrolled in a secretarial course in 1976. On March 1977, Francine came home from school to find Mickey enraged, full of booze. He was so lit that he refused to let her feed the kids, and he kept yelling at her to quit school, and she refused. He then started to put his hands on her. He forced her to burn her books, and he threatened to destroy her car if she wouldn't stop going to school. She called the cops, but as many times before, because they did not see him beating her, he was not arrested. He even threatened the cops and threatened to unalive her in front of the cops, and yet and still they did not take him in. When they left, he beat her some more, and then he R-worded her, and then he fell asleep. Now, I don't care if you're a man or a woman. I want you to put yourself in Francine Hughes' shoes. You've married this person who's turned out to be a real dick. And I'm not going to censor myself. He was a dick. You are trying to do everything that everyone's told you. You've divorced this person. This person still comes around and still treats you as if you are his spouse or her spouse. You have um, gone back to school to try to better yourself, and this person is trying to force you to stop doing the one thing that gives you any kind of pleasure in life, the one thing that you know is going to help save not only yourself but your children, and they want to take it away from you. And then on top of that, they are beating you down physically and mentally. They have assaulted you and done all of these things. And the people that you feel like you need to turn to for help, the police, have told you that because they did not see that person doing these things to you, they can't do anything. You feel helpless. You feel like there's no way out. And so, what happens next, in my opinion, was just like an atomic bomb going off. Francine had so many things running through her mind. She told an interviewer, "I was thinking about all the things that happened to me, all the times he had hurt me, how he hurt the kids. I stood still for a moment, hesitating, and a voice urged me on. It whispered, 'Do it, do it, do it.'" So she put her kids in the car, poured gasoline around Mickey's bed, and lit it. She then watched the house go up in flames and drove herself and her children to the police station to confess to her crime. She was booked and charged with murder. She was put on trial and found not guilty by reason of temporary insanity. This case was so big during the 70s that it helped bring about change in the way that we look at domestic violence amongst women. Because prior to that, there were laws on the books called chastisement, which meant that a husband could legally beat his wife in order to chastise her or discipline her. And this trial brought awareness to the ridiculousness of that particular law. But of course, this was just one step in the movement of making sure that women were safe, and men, because I'm also going to tell you guys a story about a man who was abused, and safe in their homes. There was a light at the end of the tunnel for Francine Hughes. In 1980, she married Robert Wilson, and she also became a nurse. She worked in several nursing homes, and even after retirement, she still sat with the elderly and she taught a nursing class. So my question for you is, when people start talking about the traditional nuclear family and getting back to the same values and core beliefs that we had back in the 50s and 40s and 60s, or back in the day, whatever, do you think they ever think about things like this? Or do you think that they're just dripped in the illusion of what society used to be like? Leave me your opinions and your comments below. Please be nice. And until next time, guys, stay nosy and stay meddling. Bye.